moving on from that, we're gonna go into this Uber Eats shop and pay segment. But before we do so, I gotta ask y'all to like this video. Helps with the YouTube algorithm, so give it a big thumbs up. Much, 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 very much appreciated. And of course, don't forget to subscribe if you're new. Let's talk about this Uber shop and pay. So I got a confession to make. I'm a novice when it comes to shopping, when it comes to the gig economy. I always did delivery, and that's why y'all always saw delivery content. And by delivery, I'm talking about like Uber Eats, DoorDash, where I go in a restaurant, like let's say Popeye's chicken, and I'm picking up food and taking it to the customer. That's delivery. And y'all know I started out doing rideshare, but as far as grocery shopping, I had never actually done that until a month ago when Uber sent me like this crazy quest where like, hey, if you do 3 shopping orders, we're gonna give you like $30. And I was thinking, hmm, well, could it hurt to give it a try? No. So I decided to do it. But I was signed up for shopping trips for a good while, but I never took them when I went online because the trips that I was getting, they were so crappy. I'm talking about, I don't have any screenshots to show y'all, unfortunately, as far as an example of how bad these trips were, but they're like 2, 3, $4 to go. What doesn't matter how far I was going inside and shopping and making $3 or $4 is just crazy. But those were the type of orders or requests that I was getting. That's why I never got involved in Uber Shop and Pay until they sent me that quest. So I get a $4 order come in, but when I do the math, I got to do 3 to make $30. Well, that means that order is technically worth $14 now. So then I'll entertain it. They were expanding into my area, and somehow between now and then, I guess customers figured out that they have to actually tip to get people to take their orders. So the $3 orders stopped, and it started becoming more 7, 8, $9 orders. And eventually they started to increase like 12, 15, sometimes $19 orders. And that's when I really saw that, you know what, this actually is pretty valid. So I've been doing Uber Eats Shop and Pay. That's what I'm calling it. I don't know if they call it anything else. I'm just going to call it Uber Eats Shop and Pay, which is the same as Instacart. I've been doing it for about a month. And I got to say, I like it. And I have some tips that I want to share with y'all. But before I do that, let me know in the chat if y'all have any experience with Uber Eats Shop and Pay, or if you're thinking about doing it, and leave any questions or comments there because I would love to hear y'all's take on it. And depending on how much interest I see, I might start making more content about Uber Eats Shop and Pay. I found them out through doing it, and I would like y'all to avoid the common mistakes that I personally made. And I do know a few things because I used to be a stalker. Get your head out of the gutter. And I'm not talking about that kind of stalker. I'm talking about when I was in my early 20s, I used to work at a Walmart and later Whole Foods, and I was one of the people that would stock the shelves. So I know exactly how a store is kind of formatted and how the shelves are arranged, little stuff, big stuff like that. And I would love to share those tips with y'all since essentially what you're going to be doing when you're shopping is you're going to be doing a lot of scanning and analyzing, trying to find things. And there's some good tips to know to speed up that process. Start off with tip number 1. And like I said, I'm still kind of new at this, so I have notes. So don't butcher me in the comments. It's not like Uber Eats where I've been doing this for years. Uber Eats delivery where I've been doing it for years, so this stuff just comes out the top of my head. Still kind of new to this, so I got notes. First tip is actually knowing the busy times to actually do the shopping, because just like rideshare and normal food delivery, grocery shopping does have its like cycles in terms of when it's busy throughout the day. So like with rideshare, the peak times like between 6 and 9 a.m. where you get an airport request, people going to work. Then 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. is really popping on Uber Eats and food delivery. Then between 3 and like 7, people are getting off work, so it's really popping on rideshare. And between 5 and like 9 p.m., it's really popping for food delivery. Grocery has those same peak times, but they're at different hours. In fact, there's a lot of overlap with a grocery delivery. So I find it's a great supplement to the other experiences, whether it be rideshare, delivery, or all of them. So the busy times are between 7 a.m. and noon. Now, depending on your area, some grocery stores open at 6 a.m. But I played around with this, getting up early, and I have some stores that are open early, but people aren't really ordering like groceries at 6 o'clock in the morning. But it might be worth playing around with in your market if your local grocery store, is open that early. So you could put a hyphen and say maybe 6 o'clock, just to test around with. But for sure, between 7 and noon, it starts off slow at 7, but orders start to gradually come in, and it just starts to kind of peak around, I want to say, 9 o'clock, and that peak can kind of stay peaking till like 11, and then it starts to taper off at 11:30, and it's kind of finished between noon and 1 o'clock. So I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. I got up early when it was 2 weeks ago. So I got up early and I got my first request like at 7:13 a.m. And I just kept getting requests. I just kept going. And normally I assumed it was going to be done around like 9 o'clock. That's when orders would slow down. But it actually kept going. And I was surprised. And as it kept going, before I knew it, it was almost lunchtime. And by lunchtime, I mean like the lunchtime when delivery starts to take off. Like orders really only slow down around 10:30. And by that point, it's like, well, I might as well kind of stay out here because it's going to start getting busy on the food delivery side because we're entering lunchtime. So I was just kind of shocked that it lasted that long. So as y'all can see, this is an example of like a trip that I've taken. And let's look at the mileage. So you see it went under 2 miles and it paid $14.69. Well, that's great, right? Let's look at another example. $19.03, and it went 4.27 miles. In case you notice, that's way above like $1 per mile, which is awesome. And lastly, this trip was for $15, or $15.02, and it went a little under 9 miles, which is still in that dollar per mile threshold. The next busy time for Uber Eats Shop and Pay is between 4 and 9 p.m. It starts off kind of slow at 4 and just kind of goes up and starts to peak around 7 o'clock. Then it starts to trickle back down until you hit 9 o'clock. Now, for some markets, that might be 8 o'clock, so you'll do some experimentation, but you could just say between 4 to 8 or 4 to 9. So those are the times of day where it's real busy on the on the grocery shopping side when it comes to Uber Eats Shop and Pay. Of course, this is during the weekdays. The weekends kind of follow the same cycle too, but it's not uncommon to see some kind of activity in the deader times because the nature of it being the weekend. Just like with ride share and food delivery, where it's not too crazy to see a decent amount of activity in the quote unquote dead hours. So keep that in mind. Tip number 2, when you're shopping, right, and you can't find an item, and it's going to happen eventually. Like, it might not be that you can't find it or it's not there. It's just that you can't find it. One trick that I learned to do is actually to start scanning by price. I mean, scanning like I'm going through the aisles and looking for something, especially if it's something small. I actually take a step back and actually just look at, okay, what is the price of this? And the app will show you what the price is. And once the app shows you what the price is, take your scanning and apply it to the numbers. So this is $3.99, $4.99, $5.99, and you'll see that the layer of owl in the store is sectioned off in prices. So you might be looking in an area and something costs $17.99, but you're looking in this area and it's on the owl, but this whole section you're looking at has a bunch of $2.99 stuff. You automatically know not to even look in that section because there's no way it could be there. So you can go ahead and keep moving on down the aisle to find the item. That is extremely helpful because I wasted a lot of time early on just trying to find the item, scanning like the whole aisle. And I eventually did, but if you scan by price, if you don't immediately see it, that is a great help. Next, we have, this is more so for accepting trips. Have a set minimum that you're willing to accept and have a maximum item count. Let's break down the set minimum. So by set minimum, I mean like I don't take anything that's under double digits. So it has to pay at least $10, no matter what. Because I know my market people are generous. They're great tippers. So if I take something that's under $10, there's an opportunity cost. I could have gotten something even better, but I took this like $6 order or something. So I don't take any shop and pay order that's paying under $10 at all, period. But you got to decide what is that number going to be for your market. And once you decide that, keep in mind the general mileage you're willing to drive to. For the most part, I don't ever want to drive more than like, I'll say 7 miles. So it needs to be under 7 miles too. So for me, at least paying $10 and the total distance is under 7 miles. And what I mean by what's the maximum item count you're willing to do? Let's pull up a screenshot, but it'll say 5 items, 6 items, 7 items. And this isn't to be confused with the units. It'll say the items and the units. The amount of units can be like 13, but it can only be 2 items. And the 2 items are like, let's say, sugar and salt. So it's just 13 units of like a combination of sugar and salt. That's still relatively simple because once you find where the sugar and salt is, you're just getting 13 of those. So I don't really care much about the units unless they're getting like a bunch of heavy stuff. Then I might take that in consideration. But for me, I don't like to go over 7 items. And the 7 items, honestly, if it's 7 items, I expect for it to be like over $13. But ideally, I want to be able to go in there, find like a few items, and get out pretty fast. Like some of these orders come in where it's like 42 items. It's like, look, that's too much. I don't care how much it's paying, unless it's paying like $40 or something. Then I might think about it. But decide what that number is going to be for you. Next up, we have choose a virtual Uber card. Don't pay with your money. So Uber Eats Shop and Pay. There are some restaurants or some stores where you can actually Uber has some kind of partnership with them. So you get a QR code and you just scan the QR code and then boom, it pays that way. Those are great, but for the most part, the majority of restaurants you're gonna have to pay using a Uber Eats Plus card. So they're either gonna mail you one, or you get a when you sign up for Uber Eats Pay, or you're going to have the option to get a virtual card where they'll just add this virtual card to your Google Wallet if you have Google Wallet. And I think they have the same thing for Apple Pay. Select that option because for one thing, you don't have to wait for the real card to come in the mail. That could take a while. But if you use the virtual card, it's pretty much you can be good to go that day. But the reason I say don't pay for it using your own money, when you go to these type of orders, it will ask if you want to use the Uber Eats Plus card or if you want to pay using your own money, and Uber will reimburse you the amount because you got to take a picture of the receipt. That's overcomplicating it. Don't ever do that. Just use the Uber Eats Virtual Plus card, and you'll be good to go in that regard. Don't use your own money. That is just going to complicate the process. And you won't get reimbursed until the next pay period. So if you buy stuff like today on Monday, you won't see that reimbursed until a week from then. So why even do that? Next up, we have attempt to memorize the store layout, and owls on app can be wrong. So this is pretty simple. I would start shopping at a store that you're actually familiar with because you're going to know where stuff is more. But even with that being said, you'll see that Uber will put the owls on the screen, or Uber will put the owls on the app, like where the item could be. And the bad news about this is they're relying on the shoppers to input this information for them. And shoppers can be wrong. They could just not put any information, or even worse, they could be sabotaging by putting, because when you do something, it'll ask you like, when you find an item, it'll ask you like, hey, what hour was this on? And what if they put it on hour 2 and it was on hour 10 because they're trying to discourage like shoppers, their competition, quote unquote. Look, people can do it. I wouldn't put it past them. So I would just take into the account that the owl can be wrong on the app, because it's not like an Uber representative is going in there and double checking this stuff. So just keep in mind that what they say, like the signs above each owl, takes precedent over what the app is going to say. If it lines up perfect, if it doesn't, then don't think the item has to be an owl according to the app. Tip number 6, rather, or the next tip, is oftentimes you'll need to scan the QR code for Uber to verify that the item is right. And there are multiple barcodes on items sometimes, and you could accidentally scan the wrong code because your phone picked up that code before the actual one, and they'll say that this item is incorrect. If you're sure hey, look, this is a pack of Skittles, and it has the same colors and it's the same measurement and everything is like lining up, why isn't it going through? Just check to see if there's multiple barcodes on the back, and oftentimes there is, and just try and scan it again, the appropriate like big code, and you'll see that it will go through. It just accidentally picked up that smaller code. That's why you got an error. Keep in mind age items. All right, what I mean by that is alcohol is part of grocery shopping. And when you are grocery shopping and someone has alcohol in their delivery, you will need to follow the normal protocol of buying alcohol, which means that someone in the store will need to see your ID. Why is this important? Well, it's important to keep in mind how busy that store is. And if they're real busy at a certain time of day, you see how that could be a problem because it will inhibit your ability to get in there and get out in a timely manner. And it won't have anything to do with your speed. It's because someone has to check your ID and no one's available to check your ID because they're so busy. Like everyone's on the register or something like that. If you know that scenario is going on in the store, I would actually just reject that order. Or if I take the order, I check all the items and see if there's any alcohol. And if there's alcohol there and it's a certain time of day and that store is kind of known for people not being too accommodating the staff, I would just cancel the order. So you want to make sure you just kind of think about that. Now, in my case, like there's a local Tom Thumb grocery store and they have self-checkout and they have like cashiers working the register. And there's someone always there at self-checkout, making sure everything is going smoothly. So when I go there and someone has beer in their order, the self-checkout is going to say, hey, someone needs to verify that you're old enough to buy this, right? So the light starts blinking, signaling someone to come over there. And someone is always there to get me checked out in a timely manner. I just show them the ID. It's as simple as that. Boom. You want to make sure that scenario is going on if you're going to be taking orders with alcohol. And this is a trial and error thing. You won't know if a store is kind of incompetent until you go there and try it out. If you just have a hard time getting someone to check you out, make a mental note of that for the future. And finally, the last tip, we're going to stay with the alcohol. When you're scanning an ID, because when you arrive at the delivery spot, you won't be able to leave at the door. It's mandatory that you check for sobriety. And I will go over this in visual detail in the Uber Eats like shopping page tutorial. But you got to check for sobriety. And then you got to verify that they have an ID and scan it. The app is not clear on how exactly you're supposed to scan it. So you're going to probably assume, like I did, that you just scan the whole ID in the rectangle box that it gives you, when that's actually not the case. What you want to do is tell the customer to turn their ID around. It has to be the back of their ID, not the front. And you got to zoom in on the barcode of the ID itself, and it's going to scan that to verify the person is 18, and then you can complete the delivery. For the longest time, I didn't know that. I was just scanning the whole ID, and it would take like a whole minute, maybe 2 minutes to scan the barcode because it's so far away. And as you can imagine, that's kind of like awkward and irritating for the customer to be standing there for no reason and it's not scanning, and I was thinking there's something wrong with my phone. No, it's supposed to be scanning the barcode. That's why it's taking so long. So just go ahead and zoom in on the barcode. Boom, it scans in like 5 seconds. Then they sign off on it and you're good to go. I'm real glad to share that tip because for the longest time, I just felt like there's no way to speed it up. I was like, is this always going to take like 1 to 2 minutes to scan someone's freaking ID? It's like, man. But now y'all don't have to deal with that. If y'all have any questions about Uber Eats Shop and Pay or just the gig economy in general, feel free to drop them in the comments section. I will say that I don't think it stands on its own. So you could do just rideshare and make decent money, semi-decent. You could do just food delivery and make decent money too. I don't think you could do just shop and pay and make decent money because I don't think that the demand is there enough yet. Maybe Uber doesn't have enough market share because it could take 30 minutes for like a shopping delivery to come through, but the shopping delivery actually does pay something decent, like $15 or $20. So that's great. So let's say you take a $15 delivery, shopping order, and you do it, and it takes 30 minutes, or let's just say 35 minutes. All right, that's great. So you would be making $15 an hour, right? Well, if you actually are doing other things, like let's say food delivery too, uh, my McDonald's order comes in for like $6. Like normally you probably wouldn't take that because it's not worth your time, but you just finished a shopping order where you only had to drive like 2 miles and the McDonald's is across the street from the store, right? And it's paying $6 and you only want a few miles for that. Well, now you slide that $6 order in because it actually makes it worth it because you could do that in 25 minutes to go ahead and finish the hour out. And now instead of having $15 an hour for that hour, you now have $21 an hour. You see how the shop and pay actually enhances your earnings, but I don't think it's big enough to completely like have its own category where like, well, I'm just gonna do shop and pay today. I'm not gonna do any like food delivery, and I'm also not gonna do it like any rideshare. Shopping does need to be combined with something else in order to make ends meet, to have something decent at the end of the day, in my opinion. So it needs to be combined with rideshare, which actually is a great partnership with rideshare because groceries don't stink up your car. Like one thing about doing rideshare and food delivery is when you're doing rideshare and you're doing food delivery, you need to have some way of airing your car out because it's going to smell like Popeye's chicken or pizza or burrito. And when the next rideshare request comes in, they might feel a certain way about like, why does it smell like Papa John's in here? And what if they're not a fan of Papa John's? Well, if you're doing grocery shopping in rideshare, now you're going to get that complaint because groceries, they don't have a smell for the most part. So it actually combines nicer rideshare and it combines nicer food delivery because I just gave you an example of how they combine nice. And if you're like me and you'll just consider doing all three, whichever one is paying the most at the time, well, this is an excuse to print money. And you can have these 150, 200, maybe $250 days because you know what's popping at what times, and you just leave all options on. And when something comes through, you just filter it through your filters. Like for me, rideshare has to be at least $1.50 per mile. Food delivery has to be at least $1 per mile. And for shopping order, I don't use a per mile percentage, but it has to at least be paying $10 and it has to be going under 7 miles. So you're just giving more options to, as Sergio puts from the rideshare guy, cherry pick. That cat's funny with it. But I'm